Welcome to Jesus Jazz and Dessert Wine. Our musical selection is Love. Love. L is for the way you look at me. O is for the only one I see. V is very, very extraordinary. E is even more than anyone that you adore can. Love is all that I can give to you. Love is more than just a dream for two. Two in love can make it. Take my heart and please don't break it. Love was made for me and you. Love is all that I can give to you. Love is more than just a game for two. Two in love can make it. Take my heart and please don't break it. Love was made for me and you. Well, love was made for me and you. Ooh, love was made for me and you.
Woo! Okay, so listen, I am hitting that note and also trying to figure out this whole jail situation. See, that's the whole problem when, like, I'm a superstar, but I don't have the budget or the staff. That's not gray hair, y'all. That's jail. That didn't, what you call it, but it kind of looks distinguished. Hey now, woohoo! I am Alexis Roan, aka Alexis Grace, host of Jesus Jazz and Dessert Wine at Vespers, and founder of Truth Meets Story LLC, expanding empathy one story at a time. I am so glad to have you join me here in my satellite studio in Texas for this awesome broadcast. Have a lot of interesting things going on. But first, Jesus Jazz and Dessert Wine at Vespers, for those of you who are brand new to the experience, this is a faith and adult storytelling series. By faith, I mean we explore the mystery of how God shows up or is perceived absent in our lived realities. And we do this exploration via adult storytelling. And by adult storytelling, I mean stories that are told by adults, to adults, for people with a developed adult context. And for that reason, we do not issue any apologies for anything that we share in this space. We assume that everybody who is here can handle what it means to be here. 7-year-olds have a story time, and now so do adults. You're welcome. So I am in the home of my upbringing. I am here in Houston, Texas, with my mother, Emma Means, and I normally have dessert wine, but this is a bottle of Prosecco. I don't know if y'all can see that. And Prosecco is what I'm gonna need to celebrate that Mom had a very successful surgery. But it is also the beverage of choice because Mama is a really trifling patient. I'm glad to have her here. I'm glad to be able to nurse her, but she is all kinds of fabulous. Now, pre-surgery, she was worried about copays. And then right before they rolled her into surgery, she was worried about what was going to happen to her purse. And so she was trying to keep it. I'm like, Mama, you can't keep your purse or your glasses. Like, both of them got to stay with me. And then she reluctantly hands me both, and she tells me not to scratch up her glasses and then to also she tells me that she knows how much money she got in her purse. And I'm like, well, shit, in a few minutes, I'm going to know too. So there's that. And then after surgery, thank God everything was good. It was laparoscopic. I was praying that there would be no cancer found and that they would have they would perform the surgery in the least invasive way. So the Lord answered both of those prayers. And as the nurse, so she was able to go home that evening, the same day as the surgery. And so when we were meeting with the nurse that was discharging her, she was giving her all of, kind of the to-dos. And, she says to her, no lifting, you should be able to eat regular foods, by tomorrow. So she's really, just these easy directions. And then she says, but, like no sex for a week. And mom says, oh man. And I'm like, oh, Jesus, Prosecco. I'm gonna just need me some Prosecco. And then on top of that, right? So we go, we go to the pharmacy to get her medicine. And I recognize the names of both of those medicines. And neither of them were, like, both of them were pain meds. None of them were antibiotics. And so mama, unbeknownst to me, was taking both of them. And so when she was acting bizarre, I was like, is mama going crazy? And then when she threw up, it was because she was taking, both of these pain meds. And I was like, oh shit, she just high. That's the other reason why I need Prosecco. Because my mama is up in here high and like she ain't intending to get high, but like, so finally she finally just called the pharmacy and they explained to her that no, she was not supposed to be taking those meds at the same time. And she did not have antibiotics. And so finally, I think we're gonna be good. I think she's gonna be all right. But I'm just, I'm so I'm just grateful. I'm grateful. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for this day. But I also, all of these books that I've read about, remember that book that was real popular, like the 5 love languages? And, I started trying to serve her just to see, like, okay, I'm trying to figure out which one is her love language. And then I called a sister friend. I was like, I think her love language is control. Sis is not happy if she ain't controlling it. I'm trying to get her some hot, warm, like some warm lemon water for her throat. She's like, I don't want that. I want tea. I'll get it myself. I want the kind in the closet, not in the refrigerator. And so she's just kind of going on and on. And I'm like, okay, my mama for real needs you to like to be with me. But I realized that everybody who is like writing all these different books about like, these different things, they don't all the time like do good research on Black mamas. I remember even, and I shared this before on Jesus, Jazz, and Dessert Wine, how Oprah, whenever she would have a guest and they would be like, it would be a special teen oriented, session. And they would always end it with parents, like, kids, please talk to your parents. Please talk to your parents. And I'd be like, oh shit, they don't know Emma Mean. She don't talk to kids. She's like, I tell you what to do and you just do it. And I'm like, that ain't how we talk though. And so all these years, like 52 years, I celebrated my 52nd birthday this past Thursday. And I'm still not grown enough, in this house. Like, this house is still only big enough, for one woman, even though there are 2 of us in here, but only one of us like gets to vote and decide. She even just walks in the room. She don't even knock on the bedroom door when I'm in there. She just kind of busts up in there. So I'm not even grown enough to have my own room or to have privacy. But you know what? Sis is grateful. And I'm going to let her bust up in that room as often as she likes. She did help me with the beautiful staging here for, I call this the Texas satellite studio. So she helped me with all of this. And I'm just, I'm so grateful for all that she is. I'm happy to be home. I'm happy to be in Texas. I have, when I first got to the house, first thing I did was I kissed baby girl Lex. I have a picture in my old room. It's now the TV room. So I don't claim to have a room. I now sleep in the quote TV room. But there's a picture of me as a baby there. And I kissed baby girl Lex. And I've been talking with her and been loving up on her. And I've just been kind of embodying, just really kind of settling in this space. And I remember the very first night that when we first bought the house and we moved in. It was a Saturday. That Sunday morning, we all slept on the floor because the beds hadn't been purchased yet. So me, Mom, Mike were sleeping on the floor in the living room all together. And the only thing that we had in the living room was our stereo. And so when I woke up that Sunday morning, uh, KTSU was tuned, was on the radio, and it was their gospel Sunday. And I just remember feeling just kind of this sense of peace about being in our home, a home that my mama bought for her children because she wanted them to have their own house and she wanted us to have a yard and that kind of thing. And I just remember thinking, like, wow, ooh, through many dangers, toils, and snares, we have already come, and God has been so faithful to us and so wonderful. But we also get to control the space that we're in. And that was not the case when we were in South Park, Southeast Houston. We live in an apartment complex. And, it was just this interesting space because you were just never in control. You couldn't like control your privacy. You couldn't control what people knew about what was going on in your household. Like none of that was private, right? It was all just kind of open, because the way the buildings were set up, we just kind of we faced each other. And so, that was bad enough. But then the other thing was that we could not control what other people thought about us and how they responded to what they thought about us. People write really one dimensional and bad narratives about single moms and the latchkey kids and all of that. And everybody always assumed that if we just had a little more Jesus, everything would be fine, right? So in the Black neighborhood, there's a church on every corner. And unlike when you live in a house, when you live in an apartment complex, people just assume kind of the worst about you, the worst about your finances, the worst about your psyche, the worst about your soul. And they always feel like they have the solution and that they get to come in and do whatever it is that they want to do. And so we're in the apartment complex. And the kids, like we had this area called the square. And so that's where we would play kickball, dodgeball. The boys would throw footballs. We would ride bikes and skate. In that area, whatever. Like it was our play area. But one time there was this church. They just came through um, with speakers and a microphone and a little platform. And in the middle of the area where we would normally play, they set up camp. They set up this microphone and this speaker. And what's interesting about people in the Black community is that, there's a reverence for faith or, for faith orientedness. And so nobody would ever be, you know, disrespectful, in that space. It's like, okay, the preacher wants to come and preach. All right, well, we just got to be respectful and, we got to sit there and listen. And so that's what we did. The kids sat on the steps, and we listened to this man preach. And none of the adults came out of their apartment to like say, "Hey, turn that shit off." Like nobody said anything. But what they did was they called the cops. And so I don't know how long they had been standing up there preaching, like preaching his heart out. And but suddenly the cops enter the square, approach the minister and, begin to have, just words or whatever. And so they took the microphone and the speakers away. But one of the guys continued to preach. And what he did was he just decided he wanted to stay, um, just kind of stand in front of the stairs where the kids were waiting for them to get out of our play circle. And he just began to talk to us. And he began to minister. And then he, did an invitation. It's like, if you want to receive Jesus as your Lord and Savior, bow your heads and all of that. And so I want to say that we were reverent, again, we were respectful in that space. But we just wanted him to go so we can go play. And so when he finally did leave, I remember before he left, he offered each one of us a stick of gum. And I think we got the stick of gum before he continued to, before he did the preaching. I remember that moment. I remember hating that moment. I remember hating the idea that somebody could come in and disrupt our playtime uh, and just decide that they knew what was best for us. And I grew up, and all I wanted to do was to never again be invasive in that way. But what I also became was very curious about other people's journey to faith and what it looked like when it just didn't mirror, my faith tradition. Super curious about that. Which brings us to our featured storyteller for today. Fam, he is one of my absolute best storytellers. I love to produce live shows and to feature him. The story that you're about to hear, actually, the last time he told it, it was for a show that I produced in Arizona, and we had a memory that came up. And so we're like, what is something holy about this story? Something holy about particularly this moment. This is a good time. Today is a good day. And I want you to just brace yourself and to receive very graciously our featured storyteller, Brother Ghazi Muhammad, as he dresses his truth in story.
Thank you, Alexis. Um, so the year was 1985. I was 14 years old at the time in St. Louis, Missouri. And that particular year was a very tumultuous year for me because I had just got kicked out of my second high school. I had came up out of a drug rehabilitation center for teens, and I had run away from home many times. And my mother, at that time, she was fed up with me for the most part. She was actually about to have me locked up in juvenile until I was 21 years old. So, because she said, you're too young to work, you got kicked out of school, no school want to have you anymore, so you got to get up out of my house. And I had an uncle, one of my uncle who was a member of the Nation of Islam. He had gave me a cassette tape of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan at the time. And it was a lecture he did in New York, Power and Last Forever. And I listened to that tape over and over and over again when I came up out of juvenile. And my twin brother and I, we would share rooms. And my twin, he would argue, he would fuss to my mother about me hogging the radio because he wanted to listen to the Fat Boys and Run DMC and Houdini and all the rap groups that was out at the time, LL Cool J. And I wanted to listen to this tape of the minister because I had already been through psychotherapists, I had seen counselors, I had seen psychiatrists. My mother thought I was crazy. She took me to a mental hospital. She said, the boy got to be crazy then because I whooped this boy, I beat this boy. He do the same thing tomorrow that he just got in trouble for yesterday. So she took me to mental hospitals, but it was something about this tape that just resonated with me. I kept listening to it over and over and over and over again. So I was about to go to juvenile the following week, and I called my uncle and I say, where do Farrakhan live? And he told me Chicago, Illinois. And I'm thinking like, okay, Illinois, I'm in St. Louis. Illinois is just right across the river in East St. Louis. So at 14 years old, I thought that I can straight up go on the local bus, put 35 cents in the bus, and catch the bus to Chicago. So that's what I do. I get on the bus, I catch a local bus. It takes me all the way over to Belleville, Illinois. That's as far as the bus was taking me. And then they had let me out. And as I walked down the street, I asked people, I said, how far is Chicago from here? And people looked at me puzzled. They're like, Chicago? Man, you hundreds of miles from Chicago. I was only about 35 miles about St. Louis, but I thought I was near Chicago because it seemed like I was on a bus for hours, right? And I say, I was hundreds of miles away. So I started hitchhiking. And I was walking down I-55 in Chicago. And the first person to pick me up was a white man. He picked me up. He took me so far. And actually, I had a straight razor in my pocket. And my mind was to really, we didn't have carjackings back then, but if we did, that was what I was thinking. I was going to steal this car and drive to Chicago to see the minister. But I didn't. I said, I ain't going to steal this car. I was going to take this car and drive, but I didn't. And he took me so far down the highway, and he said, well, as far as I'm going, you got to, get a ride with someone else. And then a Latino lady picked me up, and she took me down so far. And after about 20, 30 minutes, she dropped me off, and I started walking down Highway 55. And it seemed like it was hours and hours. I walked, I'm hitchhiking, I'm looking. No one is picking me up. It was cold. It started raining. So what I did was I had a jacket on, and I went on the side of the highway, and I laid down on the side of the highway and went to sleep because I was tired, I was cold, and saying nobody was gonna pick me up. And I actually was awakened about footsteps. and I jumped up, and I put my hand in my pocket because I had a straight razor in my pocket, and it was an old black man walking up towards me named Mr. Joseph. And when I put my hand in my pocket, he said, hey, hold on. And then I didn't know if he was gonna try to hurt me or not. And then he said, man, what are you doing out here? So I lied to him. I said, man, I'm going to Chicago. My mom and them got burnt up in the fire, and I'm going to stay with my grandmom in Chicago. And he looked at me. He said, well, I'm going that way, but if you got any weapons, I don't want you get in my truck. He was a truck driver. He drove a big 18-wheeler truck. He said, I don't want to put you in my truck and you have a weapon. So I looked at the old man, and I gave him my straight razor. And in my mind, I'm thinking, like, if he tries him, I'm gonna beat him down, right? Like, if he tries on me, it's gonna be on. So I gave my straight razor, and he really was a pleasant old brother. He had been driving trucks for over 40 years. And he told me about his grandchildren, showed me pictures of his children he had in his wallet and things like that. And it was a pleasant ride. Now, far as this man was going, by the time we were in Chicago, he was going right off Stony Island in Chicago. So he dropped me off at a hospital in Chicago on Stony Island called Jackson Park Hospital. He dropped me up at the hospital. He said, look, you can stay in the waiting room until you find your family, until you find your relatives. And he said, it's a supermarket across the street. It was Jewel Supermarket. I believe it's still there. And he said, you can go to Jewel Supermarket and you can buy you some food. He gave me $20 and he dropped me off. And he said, man, I hope you find your grandmother. And so I go into the hospital. And I go in there, it was like a hotel. People sleeping on the floor in the waiting room and everything. So I just go get me a little seat and I just lay down and go to sleep like I got a relative in the hospital or something. I'm waiting on somebody in the emergency room. So I go in the hospital and fall asleep. And as I fell asleep, I had a hat on my head. And my hat kind of turned a certain way. And you know anything about Chicago, they have Vice Lords, Disciples, Latin King, it's very highly gang culture. So my hat went in a way of the disciples. So it was some disciples in the hospital that and they threw the gang signs up to me. I wasn't really familiar with what they were saying. And I was talking to him and I told the guy, look, I'm from St. Louis. And one of the guys said, oh man, I got a cousin from St. Louis. And we got to talking. And he's like, man, come on, roll with us. Now, one of their members had just got stabbed up by a rival gang. And they was all in the hospital to check up on their fellow gang member. And so I started rolling with these guys. And they had a whole entire house to themselves. I don't know what these young guys get this house. They was all teenagers. I was 14. They was like 18, 19, 20. And then so that night, the first night, I walked back over to the hospital. After being hanging out with them all day, I slept in the hospital. But I knew where they hung out at. And that next morning, I got up and I went in the bathroom. I washed my socks literally in the bathroom of the hospital. And I went outside and down on Stony Island. And initially I went to the left, I believe. And I walked down Stony Island, I'm looking at the graffiti on the wall. I'm looking at the subway. And, this was a big city, another world for me from St. Louis, right? And then I turned the other way. And when I go the other way, I walk up on a building that had the word Muhammad on it. It was on the marquee. And right now it's Mosque Maryam right now. But back in them days, it was still up under Imam Wadi Muhammad, another Muslim community. And so I walk into the building. There was two guys picking up paper on the outside. And then they say, come on in. And this was actually the Friday prayer for the Muslims, Jummah prayer. And I walked into it, and it's the first time, we were sitting on the floor, and I had seen it was whites and blacks and Arabs and all different ethnic groups in there. They was praying. It was in Arabic, and I didn't really understand what they were saying because when I went to the mosque with my uncle, we just stood and we faced the east and we said prayer in English. It was very little Arabic, so I didn't really understand what they were saying. But when it was over, I asked the guys who was cleaning up, I said, excuse me, is Farrakhan here? And they looked at me and they started telling me that I wasn't black, that I was a Balalian. They started saying they was with another group that didn't necessarily agree ideologically with Minister Farrakhan. And they was telling me, no, Farrakhan is not here. They tell me he was a racist and, things like that. And I was confused because at that time, I thought all Muslims was up under Minister Farrakhan. I didn't know that it was different communities in the Muslim world. I thought all Muslims was up under the leadership of Minister Farrakhan. So I was kind of confused, and I walked through Chicago, and I'm like, man, I came way up here to see Farrakhan. These people don't even like the minister. And as I was walking through Chicago, I seen a truck that had Muslim newspaper on the side of it, and it went up into a building. And so I followed the truck up into the building. And when I go up in the building, I see a big old picture of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad on this store wall, but he didn't have his fez It was just, and so I'm looking at the picture and I'm thinking like that looked like the man to be on the mosque down in St. Louis, like the Ghazi Muhammad, but I wasn't for sure because I never seen him without that fez. And I'm staring at the picture, and the lady in the store, she said, "Can I help you, young man?" I say, "Who is that man right there?" She said, "That's the Honorable Elijah Muhammad." I say, "Oh, this got to be it." I say, "Farrakhan here?" And she with this other group that's different ideologically from the minister. So she started saying some other stuff, same thing. Oh no, we don't follow the minister and things like that. But this store here was a store that sold books and bean pies and Islamic literature and things like that. So it was a brother in the store who was a member of Nation of Islam, who was an FOI. He was in the store and he heard what this sister was saying to me. And he said, "Oh no, ma'am, sister, that ain't what Minister Farrakhan teach. He's not a racist. He teach this." And I heard the man talk. I'm saying, he sounded like my uncle. So I went in the parking lot. I'm waiting on this man right here. So when he come out the parking lot, I say, "Excuse me, hey, excuse me, sir. You know Farrakhan?" He said, "Yes, sir." And I say, "Man, where Farrakhan at?" And he gave me a card. And he said, this was time of our meetings. And on the card, it was 734 West 79th Street, Chicago, Illinois, 60620. That address is etched in my mind since I was 14 years old. And the man said, "Come on and come on to the meeting." And this was Saturday. And he said, "We have our meeting tomorrow." It was at 2:00 at that time. Back in the day, we was meeting at the Final Call building at 2:00. And so I goes back to hang out with these young guys was at. And honestly, it was a spiritual journey, but I was on a mission. I was young. These guys were smoking weed. They was drinking 40 ounces. So I started kicking it with them. We partying. But the next day, Sunday, I jumps up. So I stayed at the house these guys had, these gang members have. And the next day, I jump up and I go in one of the room. I say, "Hey, man, I want to go to this address." I pulled a card out of my pocket and he looked at it. He said, "You want to go here?" And he said, "Man, I ain't messing with them Muslims." I say, "Man, come on, show me how to get over there." And he seen how persistent I was. He's like, "You really want to go there?" I said, "Yeah." And so he and I, because he was a gang member, we couldn't walk directly from where we was at over to the Final Call building. We had to go through all different kind of neighborhoods. So by the time we got there, the meeting was over. It was over. But I had met two brothers, Brother Michael Muhammad and Brother Robert Muhammad, up there in the Final Call building, and I knew where it was at. And I'm thinking like, man, we could just went up the street right here and walked all the way down. But he couldn't do that because he was going through rival neighborhoods. So he had to go in and out. So the next day, I goes up there by myself and to the Final Call building. And this is the building where they was producing the internationally known newspaper, the Final Call newspaper. It was being produced at that time out of the Final Call building. I believe it still is. And I would walk there myself now. So I know where it's at now. But I would leave all night. I may be partying. I'm smoking some weed. I'm drinking some 40 ounces. I'm kicking it. But I want to go over here and I want to see the minister. I want to see what these brothers are talking about. Right? That's why I came up to Chicago. So I go every day. I'm walking up to the Final Call building. And I had a chance to meet, at that time, Sister Ava Muhammad. She's the national spokesman for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan right now. I met Dr. Khalid Muhammad, may God be pleased with him. He deceased and passed on. But I met like a lot of phenomenal people in the Final Call building back in them days. Brother Abdullah, and they didn't know, I was just a little thug from Chicago coming to the Final Call building. They didn't know who I was, but I was there every day just listening and talking and talking to them, and they was having meetings. They was eating bean pies and giving me water. And one time, at this particular time, it was this year, the Savior's Day, it was a tribute to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And they was putting up posters on the wall. And since I had been coming for the last few days, the brother said, "You want to go with us to put posters up on the wall to advertise our Savior's Day event?" I'm like, "Yes, sir." And actually, we went to a small community called Harvey, Illinois. And they was giving the minister the key to the city. And so he wasn't able to make it, but Brother Khalid Muhammad spoke on his behalf and accepted the key on behalf of the minister. And I actually drove to Harvey with these brothers, putting up posters and putting posters on vacant buildings and on lampposts and things like that. And I was excited to do that. And when we got back to the Final Call building that night, it was so late, one of the brothers wanted to take me home. See, normally I would leave the Final Call building and walk over there to where the gangbangers was at, start smoking weed, some more, drinking 40 ounces, because I knew my way. But it was so late, the brother said, "I want to take you home. And it's too late for you to go home." He said, "Where do you live?" And I had pronounced the street wrong. I can't remember the name of the street, but I pronounced it wrong. And he said, "Where you live?" And I didn't know I didn't know the exact pronunciation of the street that I was on. And then he looked at me. He said, "Man, are you all right?" And I felt convicted. And it was at that point where I told him, I say, "Man, I ran away from home and I hitchhiked up from St. Louis." And that brother like, "What? Like, man, you been coming up here every day. You a runaway, and You know, he had asked me for my mother's number. I told him who my uncle was, Ghazi Muhammad. He was the captain in St. Louis at the time, Mos 28. And he had knew my uncle. A few of the brothers knew my uncles. And they say, man, look, your uncle's a good brother. You know, he's a strong brother. And I was upstairs in one of the offices, and a young guy came up and said, you know, Brother Michael wants you down in his office. So I go into his office, and he got my mother on the phone. I gave him my number, and my mother on the phone. My mother didn't believe that I was in Chicago. So she said, hold on. She said, where you at? I said, I'm in Chicago. She said, hold on. She clicked over, and she had the operator to wire the phone to see, to wire the call to find out exactly where I was at. And the operator come back on and say, yes, ma'am, this call is coming from Chicago, Illinois, through some other city to St. Louis. And my mother said, boy, how you get to Chicago? I said, I hitchhiked. And she just broke down crying. Oh, she cried so hard. She said, you hitchhiked? She like, oh my God. Now her boyfriend get on the phone, and me and him wasn't getting along at the time. And he get on the phone like, you the thug. When you come back, I'm still locking you up. You still going to juvenile. And so I just throw the phone. I'm like, I don't even want to talk to this guy here. And so one of the brothers pick up the phone, and he argued with my stepdad, and my stepdad argued with him. He said, hold on. He said, sir, I didn't bring your son up here. I'm just trying to help your son get home. You know, he up here by himself. I'm trying to help him get home. And so these brothers, they had bought me a Greyhound bus ticket. They gave me a big poster of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that Savior's Day poster. And they gave me some cassette tapes of the minister. And they gave me a book, Our Savior Has Arrived, by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And they told me, brother, when you go home, get with your uncle and get back, you know, see if you can go to the mosque more and try to clean your life up, you know, get yourself together. Now, during them several days I was up there, I was so impacted by their discipline, by their spirituality, by their love and commitment. They just embraced me and accepted me. I was a runaway, and they had no idea that, but they were just showing love to just a young black man, young black boy in the hood, and it was just all love and all respect, always encouraging and things like that. So that had affected my thinking. And I remember on that bus ride back home to St. Louis, I just was thinking about that week, because I was up there for a whole week in the streets, living with these guys and smoking and drinking, but always going to the Final Call building. And I was thinking about that experience and how impactful it was on my mind. And when I got home to St. Louis, my mother and my auntie picked me up from the Greyhound bus station. And I remember seeing my mother, her face was like she had been beaten. Her eyes were swollen, and she cried that hard. She was crying so hard. And my mother didn't want to come see me. I seen her from a distance, and my auntie came over there, and she hugged me, and she was crying. She said, Red, you know, that's my nickname. She said, Red, your mama been crying all night long. She could not sleep. She thought they was going something happened to you, that you was going to get killed up there. She didn't know what was going on with you. And my mother and I, you know, we finally talked, and you know, she was mad, but she was happy to see her son, because, like, man, you know, you did many crazy things in your life, but this one, you know, this tops it all right here. You know, you hundreds of miles from home, and I don't know where you at, and things like that. And we talked, and to many people, this was a external journey, but for me, it was the beginning of a spiritual journey, and it was a way for me to like think outside of comfort zones and not be afraid to leave one place and go to another. That was like my early days, my early trainings of doing that, and then also following the dictates of God. Even though I was young and I was undisciplined, it was something on the inside of me leading me and guiding me to go up that way right there. And now, 30 some years later, I'm seeing the benefits, you know, of that journey right there. And that's a journey that I will always appreciate.
Here's what's so interesting about your story, Ghazi. Right when you are back home, and I've heard you tell this story quite a few times. One of the tellings, you talk about the brothers flanking you, like you're this little thug-looking
Yeah,
14-year-old, and you're being
yeah,
flanked by these black men in ties
right,
and trench coats, and everybody is looking at you, and they're like, "Who are you? Who are you? Who are you?"
right,
What is interesting about that whole experience is when you go home and you have your uncle and you have the mentorship, that didn't stop the next leg of the journey,
right,
which is the story that the very first bounce back story that you tell about coming out of prison. It was like, you know, like that story happened right after
right.
this one. What would you say is the was the situation that
Because I so wanted you to not have to go in, but you had to go in. What was that? Even though that was it that you were just too young for the full manifestation of the influence?
Yeah, well, you saying into prison, right?
Right.
Right. Well, so I look back on it now, and I think it was a blessing for me. It really saved me. Because I wound up going to prison anyway from high school at 16, and didn't get out till I was 24, and that time really saved me because it was during that time right there. So when I got locked up, um, my mother growing up, my mother was a hustler. And she was something else, I'm talking about pistols, Cadillac, and gold teeth, That's my mother, she from the streets, and she was something else. And so I always seen my mother there. She was there for everybody when I was coming up. If you had, and my mother, by the age of 20, she had already had 5 children. By age 20, and had been married twice. And so she didn't have a lot of formal education, but she had what I believe was a PhD in streetology. The woman, she can hustle, she can make money, and she know how to handle herself in the streets, right? And so she was there for everybody when I was coming up. If you had static, man, call Cherry. She come with them 2 things. She knew how to handle that. If your daughter got pregnant at a young age, call Cherry. She was an OG at getting pregnant. She had 5 babies by the time she was 20. If your water got cut off, you can call Cherry. She know how to cut your water back on too. She was just very resourceful in the hood. That's how my mother was. But when I got locked up, she wasn't there for me, right? So it put me in a situation where I had to rely totally on the God. And during that time I was locked up, 48 months of that time was spent in solitary confinement. So I was forced to it was just me and God. I ain't had nobody, my family wasn't there. I wasn't getting no visits. Wasn't nobody writing me letters and nothing like that. But I didn't know that my mother had started getting high on her own supply because I was gone. So she had got strung out on drugs, and I didn't know that. I thought that she just didn't want me. I thought that she just didn't like me. That she fed up with me. I done gave her a nervous breakdown. Like, I'm tired of that boy. I've been talking to him his whole life. He just hard-headed. And so in my mind, I really grew a hatred for my mother, And I remember when I came home, so for years, I functioned robotically when I was locked up. If something happened on the outside, I didn't respond emotionally because I had killed all emotional ties to the outside world. Because in prison, emotions is a weakness. Nobody care about your mama sick and dying. I got life without parole. The hell with your mama. Nobody care about your daughter getting raped. Nobody care about that because they got their own problem and they try to do time and things like that. So you don't talk about emotional things too much in there, right? So I learned to function robotically like a robot with no emotions. But while I'm in there now, I'm festering this hatred for my mother. Like, damn, I'm calling, collect call from the Department of Correction. Click. She ain't answering. I'm writing letters. She not responding. Now, I don't know she strung out on drugs and she out that bad. I don't know that she became a straight up drug addict, right? I'm thinking she just not accepting my phone calls. I'm thinking she not responding back to my letters, right? And so when I come home, it was very strange that the ride home, because my little brother, my mother came and picked me up from prison. And here I am, having this feeling of hate in my heart, but I was happy to see him. But it's like, damn, y'all wasn't there. I've been to 6 different penitentiaries. Man, I was in the hole everywhere. They maced me, they tear gas, billy clubs. I went through all that, and I called. You wasn't there. When you young, you need your mama, even though you crazy, and you that mama like God. That's the one you call on, right? But you wasn't there. So it was kind of bitter for me. But years after I was out, I remember again listening to the minister. It was he was talking about atonement. And he talked about the 8 steps of atonement. He said, if somebody wrong you, go point it out. And, y'all kind of squash that so you can get that up off of you. And I remember that I'll never forget the day I went to my mother. After I heard the man say, that's how I got to go get this off my chest with my mama. Right? Because I don't want to have this on my heart. Like, I hate you. And I'll come around you all the time and things like that. And I remember going to my mother's house and she was frying some chicken and some macaroni and cheese. And I remember looking at her and I'm thinking, like, do I talk to her before or after I get my plate? Mom can burn, right? And I'm thinking, like, maybe I give me a plate first. And I walk in the house, I say, hey, mom. She said, hey, baby. And she kissed me on the face. She said, what's going on? I said, I want to talk to you, mama. And she said, what's going on? And she frying the chicken. We standing in the kitchen. She frying that chicken in the grease. And I said, Mom, I hate you. And my mama looked at me. And this Cherry now, straight hood. She put her hands on that skillet first. And it was like, the thought was like, if my son came in this house and lost his mind, throw this grease on him and bust his head with this cast iron skillet. And I put my hands up like, hold on. And I started saying, Mama, let me tell you why I feel like that. I said, Mom, I called you. You didn't answer. I wrote you. You didn't respond. When I was growing up, I seen you there for everybody. You put your life on the line for people. You got shot. You did all kind of stuff for people. But when I got locked up, you wasn't there for me. But what my mother said blew my damn mind. Her response to me, oh, it blew my mind. My mother looked at me with tears in her eyes. And look at what she said. She say, son, when you got locked up, it wasn't nothing I can do about it. No lawyer could help you. No money. The streets couldn't help. I wasn't none. She said, I tried. You was going to prison, and I didn't know if I was gonna ever see you again. I thought they was gonna kill you up in there. You was young, you was buck wild, and she said because I wasn't the most religious person, I didn't start praying. I didn't seek refuge in God. She said what I started doing was smoking crack. I wanted to escape the pain of what she was about to go through. So here I am looking at my mother with tears in her eyes, thinking that, damn, here I am thinking I'm justified in this hate. I'm thinking that this indignation is justified. I'm supposed to feel like this. You wasn't up for me. I called you. You didn't answer. I wrote you. You didn't respond back. And you telling me that one of the contributing factors of you becoming a drug addict was my delinquent behavior. And I was blown away. And it was at that point where I started telling young people that we can't judge our parents, no matter what they go through, no matter what, we ain't in a position to judge them because I had no idea. I'm thinking she just didn't like me. But she became a drug addict trying to escape the pain of what I was about to go through because she didn't know if I was going to live or die. And that blew my mind right there. But then she and I atoned from that point on, and we became like Ace Coon Bone. She transitioned now, but we were jammed, before she passed. We were solid, and I was able to get that up off of me before she, made that transition, and we just became like good friends. But during that time of prison, it was a blessing for me because it made me totally rely on God and God alone. Wasn't nobody else there. So even though it was horrible for her becoming a drug addict and things like that, it was good for me because she didn't respond at all. And man, when you're a nut, you got to call on somebody. So I started reading the Quran more, started reading the Bible more, started studying more. And that was like the beginning of a spiritual development for me,
Now, wow, just all of that, Ghazi, was just like so powerful. But did you ever meet the minister?
Yes, I met the minister. Yeah, I did meet the minister. Matter of fact, when I was in Chicago, I met him. And it was some of the first time I seen him. I was in the final call building. They had a list of names of all the people who was members in the final call. And I was looking at the name, reading the names, and they had walked in through a door, and my back was turned. They say, "Salam alaikum." And I turned around and said, "Well," I said, "Damn!" I'm thinking like, "Man, it's Farrakhan." Like, "Damn, it's the minister talking to me." And he's like, "Salam alaikum, brother." He greet me, and I'm looking. I'm like, "Damn, I can't believe I'm talking to Farrakhan." Like I'm blown away, and and in my life over the years, I had other chances to really meet and interact with them and things like that. And actually, I want to say this before my mother transitioned. I want to say this to her because it really honors my mother. Before she transitioned, my mother dealt with cancer for many years, and about 2009, 10, I had left St. Louis and went to Phoenix, Arizona. And my sister called me and she said they giving mom 6 weeks to live. And I said, oh man. And my ex-wife and my children and I, we jump in the van that day and we hit the road. I ain't even have all the money to get brothers meet me on the highway, give me gas money and stuff like that. I'm like, man, I gotta see her before she died. And I get down to St. Louis and I started talking to my mother and I asked her a question. I said, Mama, do you have any regrets in life? My mother said, no. She said, yeah, I do got. I said, you have any regrets? If there's anything that you want to do before you die? Because my mind thinking like, if you got 6 weeks, we've been trying to make something happen. She said, no, I don't have no regrets. She says, one thing I want to do though. I said, what's that? She said, I want to meet Louis Farrakhan. Oh man, I was blown away. I said, you want to meet the minister? Now here, this Chevy now, straight in the streets, hood, cracked out, all that. She said, yeah. And she said, because you was my worst child, you trying to be my best child. And I want to meet the man that's responsible for that. And my mother, she was in hospital at the time, strong-willed though. She came up out of hospice, went back to doing what she was doing in the streets. A year later, police kicked her door in, had my twin brother out hustling, and police kicked the house in and things like that. So my mother's still dealing with this cancer. She got a tumor on her brain. The cancer had spread so much she was defecating blood. Blood was in her urine. She was very little, but she was still, doing that street stuff. And so I called my mother. I said, Mama, why don't you come up to Phoenix and see, it's a naturopathic doctor up there in Phoenix, Dr. Patina Muhammad. I said, why don't you come see Dr. Patina? Because all the other days, she went through the chemo, the radiation, and all that kind of stuff. And She came up there. The only first time she was on the airplane, she flew to St. Louis to Phoenix, Arizona. It was on New Year's, 2009. And she came up there. I took her to see Dr. Patina, and I was driving taxis at the time. I was a cab driver, and I was out working. And my ex-wife, she called me. She said, "Mom is in a lot of pain. You know, she's sick." And I said, "Okay, call the paramedics. I'm on my way home." By the time I get there, they taking Mom out on the stretcher. You know, she was still alive, but she was in a lot of pain. You know, when you go through, they had just give her to the hospital, give her pain medicine to like keep her calm or whatever. And so I followed the ambulance up to the hospital, and this a year later. And my mama said this to me. I had forgot about the conversation we had a year before. And while we was in the hospital in on the west side in Phoenix, Arizona, my mother said, "Damn, I thought I was gonna get to meet Farrakhan before I died." And look, the minister had just came into the city 2 days prior. You know, he come to Phoenix. You know, he come to Phoenix every year. You know, it's a home up there. And then when she said that, I'm thinking like, oh man, I gotta get my mom to see the minister. So you know, I called one of the brothers, you know, on the minister security team, and I told him that story because when we was in St. Louis, look what my mother said. And I had interviewed her. When I asked her if she had any regrets, she said she wanted to meet the minister. She also said to me, she said, if I die before I meet him, if he can just stand over my grave, I can feel his spirit. Then she said, if I can get close enough to touch the hem of his garment, you know, and I didn't know exactly like her faith. You know, she's a street hood sister, never been to the mosque, none of that kind of stuff, right? And she said, but she had that much faith because she seen the effect that the minister had on her son. And I told the brother everything my mother said. He said, brother, write that up. And he gave me Joshua Farrakhan number, the minister's son. And he said, brother, call Josh and tell Josh that. I told Josh, he said, brother, put that in a letter and take it over to the National House and give it to the minister's secretary. I'm gonna let them know that you on your way over there. And this was on a Thursday. This was Friday night. I take the letter over there to the National House. And Saturday morning, I'm getting a call. Assalamu alaikum, this is Sister Kim, the minister's executive secretary. I'm like, dang, it's like early in the morning, right? She say, the minister read your letter, and he want to grant your request to come to your home where you live. I'm like, the minister want to come to my house? I'm like blown away, you know. But my mother, she wanted to go over to see the National House. I took her by the house that the minister come in. Ghazi Muhammad was in that home, and she wanted to go over there. And I wanted her to go over there. And then so I said, well, and I don't want to inconvenience the minister like that to come. I live in the hood. I'm like, nah, I mean, you know, I know the minister would come. I'm like, man, I don't want to inconvenience the minister like that. So I said, well, we can come over there. And the minister was in the background, like, he was asking her, can she still walk? I said, yeah, she real weak, but she can walk. And my mother tell my ex-wife this right here. She said, I don't want to go see Farrakhan any kind of way. She said, I want to look like a black queen when I go see the minister. She said, can you give me one of them pretty Muslim outfits that y'all be wearing? So it's the only time she ever had her hair wrapped up, had a gum, never in her life. It's the only time she ever did this when she went to see the minister. And when we get over there, the minister's wife, Mother Khadija, she come down and give my mother a big kiss and hug. She say, sister, we love you and we praying for you. And, you know, then the minister and Joshua Farrakhan, his son, came in and the minister talked with us. He prayed with us. And he held my mother's hand and he took pictures with us. And, you know, I actually got a picture of the minister kissing my mother on the face. And he told Joshua, take the picture just like this. And the minister's kissing my mother on her cheek. And then we know, because he hugging all us, and we got pictures with him. And then as we was leaving, I look up at the man, I say, man, I love you. He said, I love you more. I say, I can't say nothing, just put my head down, man. And, you know, my mother, you know, now I watched my mother be healed in my mind through that prayer from the minister. And because my mother, she was weak, the cancer had tore her body up, crack had tore her body up, hard living had tore her body up. And she stayed with me for another couple of weeks in Arizona. And she wanted to go back to St. Louis. And but when she went back to St. Louis, she called me one day. And she said, Red, you ain't gonna believe this. I say, what? Now, you know, she was like semi-illiterate. She say, I went to my cancer doctor. They say the tumor gone from my brain. They say I ain't got no cancer. She said the cancer went in readmission. That's how she said. I say it went in what? She said readmission. And I say, oh man, she was so excited. But I watched that prayer from the minister heal my mother. So now in my mind, like, can't nobody tell me nothing about the healing power of prayer or the healing power of that man, because I watched my mother heal. Now she died. She lasted another 7 years. After that time,
Wow.
6 weeks to live. And she didn't die from cancer. She couldn't leave them drugs alone. She couldn't leave that hard life alone. She couldn't leave them streets alone, you know. And but I watched it, I witnessed it, and it further intensified my belief in prayer and the power of prayer. You know.
Well, actually, that story it intensifies my belief in you and what redemption looks like as you wear it and as you model it, and as your life is a canvas for so many.
Thank you.
I'm in awe. I'm in awe. Like everybody's like, woo! The whole virtual pews are lit. Everybody is like seriously like receiving this. Okay, now Ghazi had another faith move that he did. Can you talk with us about Kayane Sunset Ranch?
Yes. So I'm sitting here now. My wife and I, we purchased a 25-acre ranch down here in Georgia. And the origin of it was we just celebrated 2 years of marriage. We both previously married, and we remarried. And when we first got married, now I had already had 9 children, right? Most of my children grown, and but when we first got married, she had got pregnant within 2 months, and it was a highly anticipated pregnancy because the doctors told her that she wasn't supposed to have children. So she had one boy. He's 12 now, and they said when he was born, they said that's a fluke. That was a mistake. We don't know how that happened. It'll never happen again because she was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome at the age of 16. But when she was young, she had a dream that she had a little girl. She seen a little girl in the yellow dress. She seen herself playing with the little girl, and she held on to that dream all these years. That man, I'm supposed to have me another baby. And so I said, well, doctors didn't know what they were talking about you ain't gonna have no babies. I said, God knew who to put you with, because he was like, if this boy can't do nothing else, the boy can make some babies, because I had already had 9 children. And when we got together, she got pregnant and found out it was a little girl. She was ecstatic. I mean, she was telling everybody about her. She showing her little bump off. I'm like, baby, it don't look no bigger today than it did yesterday. She on talking to her friends, her family involved with the pregnancy. She was really excited about that. She was in her parties, and so that was a big thing. And but the baby wound up dying. The baby was stillborn at 24 weeks, and that was a heck of a time for both of us. For her, it was a test of faith, because in her mind, it's a fulfillment of God's promise. He showed me this, that I was gonna have a girl when I was 16 years old. So now I'm 40 something, and now I'm pregnant. But then the baby died, and now it's like, damn. I mean, God, but you showed me this. Why? How the baby dead? Now for me, it was something, because I was there for all my children's birth. I held them, I watched them grow up, and I played with them when they was babies and all that. So it was something to hold my lifeless child. And my wife actually, she slept with the baby in the bed, a lifeless child, for like 6 hours, just holding the baby, crying, kissing the baby. The baby dead, and it was a heck of a time. And the nurses and everybody just gave her space and things like that. Well, rather than stay in that place of mourning and grief, because we both filled with faith, and all through the whole process, our mind was God the best knower. God is the best knower. Whatever happened, God the best knower. And so rather than stay in that place of mourning and grief, what we did was we started a nonprofit organization, the Kayani Foundation, in honor of the baby girl. And we had a gala event in Phoenix, Arizona. We had rented a place that looked like the Taj Mahal, a very beautiful place. And we had food come in, we had speakers, and we honored 24 other women who lost children through miscarriage and stillbirths. And we put crowns on their head. We put their baby names and plaques. And one sister who spoke there, she got pregnant 6 times. All 6 babies died in the womb. She never had any children, so she started adopting children, and she became an educator. And in her mind, all these children, my students are my children. That's the mindset that she adopted. And right after we honored these women, we had co-authored a book, Stillborn. And right after we honored these women, 2 weeks later, she found out she pregnant again. And to a doctor said she wasn't supposed to have no children. She found out she was pregnant again. And my junior, Lil Ghazi Jr., was born December 10th of last year. He coming up on 1, and just a few weeks here. And he was born. And what we say to each other is that when you serve people, when you go through pain and trauma, and you serve other people that go through similar pain and trauma, then God opened the door for you. He blesses you because you didn't just wallow in your own pain, but you want to serve other people who went through something similar, even though it was a painful time for us. And so what happened was that shifted our thinking. And we say, man, let's do something different. We were living in a suburban area in Phoenix, Arizona, manicured lawn. We were chilling. You know, I was speaking, I was writing, and we didn't think about traveling, especially on the farm. And we was actually going to buy an RV and travel the country for a year. And, you know, we had got some rental property. We sold the rental property. We said, let's get an RV. We was going to travel the country for a year. And a brother Ben X, he put a clip of the minister on Facebook talking about land. See, the minister again. He's always the minister.
Yeah.
He was talking about land. So I'm looking at it, and I say, man, we ain't gonna get the RV. You know, let's get some land. And she said, I had, you know. So we started, you know, looking for some land, and we thought we were gonna get a house with a couple of acres and grow some tomatoes and cucumbers and, you know, live our whole life out, right? But when I was coming down to Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee looking for land, I had connected with some other farmers down there. And actually, Brother Patrick, he called me. He's a farmer down there. He got 26 acres. And he tell me, he say, brother, I got the perfect spot for you. I went to about 20 different houses down here looking. I seen some beautiful places, nice land. And he called me when I got back to Phoenix. I got the perfect spot for you. He sent me some pictures. I flew back down here, and I just loved it. It has an event space on it, a 2-acre pond, and horse arena, and all the barns, and you know, got a little glamping house. It just had everything that we needed to really do something with it. We didn't know what we was gonna do with it, and so we wound up selling the house while we were still in negotiation. We hadn't even closed on the house. We sold our house in Phoenix, and we hit the road. We had got one of them little boxes you put all your stuff in, them little metal boxes that you transport your furniture in. We had packed our stuff up in there, them iPods and them pods. And it was on the way to Georgia to my mother-in-law house. She stayed down by Columbus, Georgia. And we hit the road. We hadn't even closed on it. And by the time we got to New Orleans, we was like, man, we don't know if we're going to get this property. We was already looking for an apartment. We thought we get to Atlanta, we're going to be homeless. You know, we got a little money, but we ain't got no place to live. And so we got down to Atlanta, and we stayed in the hotel for a week. And, you know, we still negotiating. Wound up closing on it and, you know, getting the property. Now, Cheyenne still hadn't seen the property physically. I flew out here and seen it physically. And when she first came down here to see it physically, it was cold, it was raining, it was muddy. And I'm telling you, she looked at me like, what the hell you move me to? We come from a clean neighborhood. She's like, man, it's dirty. She's like, I ain't staying there. She sounded dirt and mud. It was cold and raining. She said, well, I ain't staying there. You know, and but now she loved it, you know, and actually for the first month, she didn't stay. She went down to her mother's house. She said, well, if I'm going to live here, you got to redo the kitchen, the bathroom. I want new flooring. I want new countertop. So I stayed up here on the mattress. You know, me and the dog, you know, we stayed up here on the mattress dealing with contracting and things like that for about a month and a half. And then got it right for her. And now we here. And since we've been here in the last like 6-7 months, God has blessed us to create 12 streams of income from the land. We've had, man, hundreds and hundreds of visitors to the land. You know, we've been blessed to be in the Final Call newspaper. I go to the Final Call again. You know, we've blessed to be in a nice article in the Final Call newspaper. USA Today came out and interviewed like new black farmers because we just jumped in it. And now we got, you know, horses and chickens and cows and bulls and donkeys. And we never been around none of this kind of stuff. It was like totally new. But it's been a blessing, and it has literally changed the trajectory of our thinking right now. And now our mindset is when we got the land, we named it Kayani Sunset Ranch. And the idea behind it is that Kayani died, but something was still born. A sense of purpose, a mission, and a vision. She was still born, but it was something else born on the inside of us when she died. And so now when people come in, they honor Kayani's name, even though she did. We're trying to show people how you honor your loved ones who pass on. You know, you institutionalize something in their name. So the baby never made it, but it's a whole ranch now named after her, and hundreds of people have visited in honor of baby girl Kayani.
Kayani was stillborn, but something else was stillborn.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's such a mic drop. Oh, Brother Ghazi. Okay, now I need you to put on record that I do have an open invitation to Kayani Sunset Ranch.
Oh yeah, you come on down, sister, anytime.
Okay,
yes,
and Star Robinson, she was like, I want to visit. So I'm coming there to get into some good trouble, to plot to see like what we about to do. Like it's some good stuff that's happening on that spot. Like, yeah, absolutely. Like this is so awesome. Rochelle said death gave birth. mission, vision, purpose. All of that. Yeah. This is so profound. Thank you, Ghazi, for all that you do. I so appreciate you.
Yes,
Thank you
ma'am.
for joining
Thank
us.
you.
Okay, don't leave me though. Like I'm saying, I'm gonna just put you backstage. Oh, and everybody can hit up, let's see, Sunset Ranch.farm. Okay, it looks like me, Star, and Lynette are coming to the
Come on down. Come on down, sister.
so we all gonna be here. Okay, thank you, Brother Ghazi, just for all that you are. I'm gonna put you backstage. Don't leave me. Y'all, when I tell you that I so love just the opportunity to be able to be in this space and to bring you the word that you just got. Like, I don't even know. I'm hoping that somebody was taking good notes, because I know I'm going to have to go back and replay it for some of the different things. Like we had a featured story, going to meet the minister, and then we got so much more from that. Let's see, somebody else just popped up here. Yeah, Jacqueline Clinton said amazing. Absolutely, Jacqueline. I'm in awe of all of the ways that this space creates community and information, some stuff that we can hold on to and go out into the world and be better. Star said 12 streams. Okay, Star, you know we about to start. We about to start plotting. Okay, you already know. Let's get this done. All right. Well, listen. So there are. Oh, I'm sorry. There are 4 things that we do before we close out Jesus, Jazz, and Dessert Wine. The first is we offer a public lament. And I want to say that because this week has been, prior to the surgery being okay, it was very stressful for me because, I wanted my mother to be safe and I wanted everything to go well. And all of it was out of our hands and it was ultimately in God's hands. And so I'm grateful that God spared me sorrow upon sorrow and that all was well with her. But I lament the people who have these kinds of stressful experiences and situations in life. Ghazi talked about how when he was in prison and nobody would take, mama wouldn't take his call. Nobody would visit, and just the hatred and the loneliness and all of the things that he had to deal with on his own. I lament that there are those of us who are in times of our loneliness and in our distress, we don't have anybody. We got to figure it out on our own. But here's my prophetic hope. My prophetic hope is that that when you open your mouth, you will see the people come to your side. But if you open your mouth and you're like, hey, you didn't come to my side, that your understanding of why they were not there becomes clear. And the enemy of our common good can no longer hold that sort of angst against you. I love that Ghazi told the truth. He opened his mouth and he said, Mama, I hate you. And she said, baby boy, I need you to know that the pain that I was in, I didn't know how to call on a God. That was not my way. But I needed something to take that pain. And because I knew what you were about to go through, I was in pain that I couldn't do anything about it. So I did what I could do to numb the pain. He opened his mouth and told her, she opened her mouth and told him. And then he described their reconciliation as atonement. They both got it. They hurt each other. There was pain there, but there was also forgiveness and there was love. My prophetic hope is that you would open your mouth and people would come to your side, and that you would open your mouth for those who didn't come to your side, and you would have a better understanding, and that we wouldn't have that angst that it does not work in our favor. It's not intended for our good, but open your mouth and let's see all of the goodness that comes from that. The third thing we do at Jesus, Jazz, and Dessert Wine is we offer an energizing memory. Now, at this point, I was supposed to have queued up the video of Ghazi, Calvin, and Alvin, who were the 3 brothers featured in hashtag The Bounce Back in Phoenix. They were describing me as the producer of this show. One called me the queen, the queen general drill sergeant. The other one called me, I forgot what Ghazi called me, but then Calvin called me delightfully dominant. So I'm like the queen general drill sergeant, delightfully dominant, extraordinaire, producer. Getting it in. I wanted to tee that video up. It's super cute. Go to my Facebook page and you'll be able to pull it up. All is well, and so many awesome things are happening in that space. So that's my energizing memory. I want y'all to keep track of your energizing memories as well. And then the last thing we'll talk about is giving. And I I had a situation this week where I felt compelled to give based on like it just kind of felt like manipulation. And so I wanted to use the space to say that it is okay for you to give what's in your heart to give and no more. Like give what's in your heart to give. You don't be compelled or forced to do anything. Your heart is good. God is with you and your spirit is so honorable, and whatever it is that comes up for you, lean into that. Please don't be manipulated to do anything that's beyond that. Give what's in your heart to give. All right. Let me go to the virtual pew here. Let me see. Okay, Lynette was like, powerful testimonies. Exactly, Lynette. He gave us more than that one story. We had a lot of good stuff. This was good for my soul. And Lynette, it was good for my soul as well. Ashe, sis, Ashe. Looks like I missed somebody else's. Yes, Saintless is saying blessings. Yeah, he's absolutely one of my favorite. Okay, so before I let you go, next week, our featured storyteller is Rochelle Walker. And we are going to be, there are so many stories that Shell has. And I am excited to feature the one that she's going to share with us next week. And I'm going to give you more details on that next week. I can't really talk about it right now, but I promise you, come back next week and it's going to be all kinds of good. All right. And with that, our blessing and our sending. I am grateful that somehow I have managed to live life in a way that I get to know people like Ghazi Muhammad. And I get to bring him to all of you who are in the virtual pews. My hope and my prayer is that what you experienced today will carry not just the stories that he told, but the way that he talked with us about truth and atonement and love and forgiveness. May the transformation that his mama said is evident in his life. And I can attest to that. I don't know what he was like beforehand. All I got is the stories. But Mama Sherry was there. And so she knows that something happened and it was good and it was rooted in love. I pray that what you experience this week and beyond, that you will experience the power of love, the power of forgiveness, that you will open your mouth, that you will give what's in your heart to give, that you would intend good and go and do good and be good in the world. A weary world awaits you. All is well in all manner of things. Ashe, Selah, so be it. Thank you so much for joining me today. I will see you next week, 4:30 Central Standard, 5:30 Eastern Standard Time at Jesus Jazz and Dessert Wine at Vespers.
My funny Valentine, sweet comet Valentine, you make me smile with my heart.